My name is Catherine Caffey O'Brien. I am a survivor of industrial schools and mother and baby homes. For the last 10 years, I have been campaigning, along with others, to get the graves marked within the institutional grounds of industrial schools and mother and baby homes.
And Catherine, have you yourself experienced firsthand what it was like in these institutions?
Yes, I have, and my mother before me. My mother, along with her 6 brothers and 2 sisters, were all court-ordered. They were taken off a campsite in Mountain Stage, and they were put in to 3 different institutions. My aunts were put in Killarney, my uncles were put in St. Joseph's Tralee, my mother was put into Nazareth Tralee. And it had a devastating effect, really. One of my aunts died in the laundry. She was 14 years of age. My uncles, after being in the Christian Brothers, were all farmed out, and when they were no more, it's called boarded out, when they were no more use. They were then ended up in South Indians mental asylum. They never married, they never had children. My mother she was the product of her upbringing. She always held on to her identity as a traveller, but she had a lot of PTSD issues, health problems. So I ended up in the institutions that my mother was in, and I can tell you I first-hand experience and memories of that particular institution. I also have it on record that I complained of the abuse at the time, and the Garda said, you must have done something to deserve it. It is indescribable what happened to travellers within these institutions, and how their destinies were taken from them, their names were taken from them, their whole sense of self was taken from them. When travelling children were brought into the institution and they were put into a bath with sunrise soap, and there was a deck scrub used, and the terminology washed the knacker out with them. Look into the mother and baby inquiry. There's statements there from inspections where they were concerned that itinerant children were bringing an infection into the home. They were on about segregating travelling children away from the other children in the home because they were worried about venereal diseases. There was another statement there that one of the nurses sat up all night with a dying travelling baby. It's in the documents. You can look it up yourself. It's it. The mother and baby inquiry. This history is dark, and it's toxic. And I don't want to be embarrassing my country, but at the same time, I have to think about the perception of justice for my community, of my people, and how they were robbed. I was robbed, and many more were robbed of aunts and uncles and extended family. The roots of our tree was cracked the day they took my mother out from family by court order. They broke no laws. I have my mother's court order here. It clearly states vagrancy because they were down below in a camp. Now, I personally think it was assimilation. I have studied this for a long time and researched that. I think it was assimilation.
Can you tell me, Catherine, what it was like the first time you arrived into one of these institutions?
First I was brought in up to the back stairs, up into the bathrooms, down the back. You have 24 sinks in the middle, and you have 6 toilets on the right hand side, and at the end you had 4 baths. And I was put into the bath, and I was scrubbed with an inch of my life. I was brought down into the locker room. I was given 1 set of clothes for the week, a pair of pants, 1 pants, a jumper, a pair of socks and knickers. If you lost that knickers or those socks, you were dead. You were beaten. So I was brought into the office, and they told me, the nun that was in there, she told me, First of all, she told me that my mother was one of her best pupils, her best past pupils. You would think it was boarding school. It wasn't. Second of all, she expected a lot. She said she expected a lot from me because of my mother. But I remember her telling me that I had made my mother sick and that the Tinkers didn't want me. And that I was there because my own people didn't want me. And then while I was there, I was not to discuss the institution if I was in the town centre, if I was not to discuss the institution. If anyone asked me questions about the convent, not to talk about the convent, I was not, her exact terminology was, not to talk to those people on the street. Those people were my cousins. I'm here because I have a duty to my ancestors, and I have a duty to those that didn't make it out the gates, that are in our mark raised all over the country, in these institutional grounds. I'm here to inform the general public and ask the Irish government, I'm pleading with the Irish government that these graves be marked and protected and acknowledged. We're all supposed to be equal in debt. When some of us are still not equal in debt because their graves are marked, are protected. And that's not right too in 2025. We talk about rights, we talk about equality, but actually none of these children or women were treated right or given any rights or weren't treated equal in these institutional law, in those institutions. And now I'm pleading with the government that these grounds, that these graves be marked and protected, and for the living survivors of from the industrial schools, that they get the supports that are due to them. We received an apology from the government 25 years ago. Now the legislation has been dismantled and the government, the Irish state, are no longer obligated to providing adequate supports for industrial school survivors. And I'd like to add to that, to inform the general public and the Irish state, Irish travellers who were incarcerated and annihilated, their culture annihilated, taken from them, stolen from them, when they were court-ordered into these institutions, have never been acknowledged. Families were fractured. Families were blown in all directions, put into different institutions, never set eyes on each other again. Therefore, it had an effect on the culture, and it's now having an effect intergenerationally on our culture. We have our own language, we have our own values, we have our own ways. And when you're assimilated into an institution, and you're just a number, and your identity is taken from you, your name is taken from you, and then you're released at 16, 17, and you have no family, you have nobody. And your sense of self was stolen by the Irish state. What I would like the Irish government to do, the least you could do, is treat the dead with respect, mark and protect the graves of those who didn't make it out of the institutions. And second of all, keep your word. There's one thing about travellers, we keep our word. Keep your word. You gave an apology 25 years ago. You apologised. I brought your horn, said from to the day we died, we'd get the support that we were entitled to. And now you're watering it down, like you're trying to sanitise this history as well. But no, give the support to the living and then acknowledge the dead.